For centuries, the Vatican has been the guardian of secrets. Some are mundane, lost texts, diplomatic correspondence, ancient decrees. Others are whispered only in shadows, stories the world was never meant to hear. Among them is the tale of the vampire, not a creature of fiction, but a legend tied to blood, power, and fear. A legend that may have crossed the threshold of the church itself. In the 15th century, Vlad III of Wallachia became known as Dracula, the dragon. To the church, he was a brutal warlord, yet the accounts of his cruelty were interwoven with rumors of strange rituals, blood rites, and ancient knowledge hidden from the public. Some scholars claim that missionaries and travelers carried tales of these rites to Rome, where they were recorded, studied, and ultimately sealed within the Vatican's archives. Imagine a room behind locked doors, centuries of dust settling over manuscripts bound in leather, ink faded but still legible. These texts describe rituals meant to manipulate life and death, ceremonies that treat blood as more than fluid, as a vessel of power. Were these warnings or instructions? Over time, the Church codified what it deemed heretical. Pagan and occult practices were suppressed, destroyed, or hidden. But some manuscripts survived, moved quietly, catalogued under obscure classifications, never to see daylight. In them, some see echoes of the vampire myth, the strigoi of Eastern Europe, feeding on the life force of others, a parallel to legends that would one day inspire Bram Stoker's fiction. These stories remained sealed, whispers in the Vatican halls, yet they are more than tales. They are reflections of a time when fear and faith intertwined, and when the line between legend and history blurred. The vampire was not merely a monster. In the shadows of the church, he was a symbol of the eternal struggle between mortality and the desire to transcend it. The truth of what the church may have known and what it chose to conceal is lost to time. But as we peel back the layers of history, the shadows of the vampire endure. The secrets hinted at in the shadows of Part 1 are only the beginning. Behind the massive oak doors of the Vatican's archive lie manuscripts older than the Renaissance, texts that survived inquisitions, fires, and centuries of careful concealment. In them are cryptic accounts of the strigoi, vampires whose legends were whispered across Eastern Europe, brought to Rome by travelers, scholars, and clerics. These documents describe ceremonies that treat blood not merely as a substance of life, but as a vessel of essence, power, and memory. Some passages hint at techniques meant to extend life, to preserve vitality through ritualistic practice. Scholars debate whether these were allegorical teachings or instructions, but the manuscripts are meticulous, detailed, and unnervingly precise. Consider one parchment, faded but legible, describing a ritual conducted under a full moon. The life within the blood shall awaken the heart. The vessel that bleeds in terror shall impart strength upon the initiates. Such words, though centuries old, resonate with the same fascination with immortality that humankind has never ceased to chase. Beyond the manuscripts themselves, the Vatican's influence on symbolism cannot be overlooked. Gargoyles perch on cathedral roofs, their wings shadowing the faithful below. Stained glass windows glow with crimson light, their figures bending, twisting, and sometimes bleeding into one another. Some scholars argue that these images were purely ornamental, yet others see a subtle continuity. Dragons, serpents, and creatures resembling the undead, a hidden echo of the myths these texts describe. Could it be coincidence that the same symbols, dragons, blood-red motifs, serpents, appear across manuscripts and sacred art? Or were these deliberate signs, a way for the Church to encode warnings or knowledge into plain sight? As centuries passed, the Church's secrecy intensified. Only select clerics were permitted to view certain texts, and access was heavily guarded. The idea of a vampire, A creature born from the manipulation of blood and fear became metaphorical, a warning about human hubris. Yet it also served as a template for what some historians call practical alchemy of the living body. Moving into the modern era, whispers persist that these secrets never truly vanished. Researchers, scholars, and curious clerics continued to explore blood, vitality, and human longevity under the guise of medicine and theology. Some private institutions, inspired by ancient manuscripts, experimented with the symbolic and practical aspects of blood preservation. Imagine a modern laboratory tucked away from the public eye. Glass vials filled with deep red liquid, microscopes analyzing its composition, holographic projections tracing ancient symbols onto the ceiling. Could these be remnants of knowledge derived from the Church's hidden texts, or merely scientific curiosity echoing myth? The most compelling question remains: why did the Church preserve these manuscripts in secrecy? Were they warnings to future generations, instructions for rituals lost to time, or merely artifacts of superstition? And if some of the techniques had merit, even partially, who could say how far their influence has reached? Symbols, stories, and manuscripts converge into a haunting narrative. A vampire not as a monster of legend, but as a symbol of humanity's eternal obsession to live longer, to cheat death, to grasp what is meant to remain beyond reach. In the shadows of the Vatican, among towering shelves of manuscripts, there are questions that may never be answered. Whispers of the Strigoi persist, echoed in art, ritual, and modern fascination with immortality. Perhaps the Church was not protecting the faithful from monsters, but from knowledge mankind was not ready to wield. And so the story ends not with certainty, but with the haunting realization that some legends never die. They evolve, they adapt, and in the hallowed halls of the Vatican, the vampire endures, a shadow of history, a symbol of secrecy, and a reminder that even faith cannot fully suppress the unknown.